Autumn is my favorite time of year. The leaves change color, the air is more crisp, and it's an excuse to rewatch my favorite piece of media of all time, Over the Garden Wall. To me, there is no piece of media that's perfect. That's what I truly believed until a decade ago when I watched the miniseries for the first time. If you haven't already watched it, please do. I'll be spoiling basically everything, and I'd hate for you not to get to see a piece of animation that is truly special. I hope you'll stick around as I go over theming, the creation, and the impact Over the Garden Wall had on me. As many are aware, the unknown is a place between life and death, a space hanging in between like purgatory. It's a setting that doesn't belong to any time era, where the souls of the lost wander the void seemingly endlessly, stuck in limbo as they try to escape being trapped there. But it's also so characteristically welcoming, as it's only fitting that our setting that is halfway between life and death is inviting. The wistful, ever-longing, and at times overwhelming feeling of nostalgia that the unknown invokes in the viewer. It feels like a memory that has been forgotten that you wish to return to, and I believe that was the intention when creating the setting, which is informed through its art direction headed by Nick Cross. The art, specifically the background design, layout, and palettes, combined together to create something incredibly unique. The designs and art pulled inspiration from vintage Halloween postcards, New England forests, chromolithography, and the colonial farms and architecture from Concord, Massachusetts. To name a couple of the artistic influences, the team looked at the works of Gustave Doré, Jose Guadalupe Posada, and Edward Lear, along with the many publishings from the McLaughlin brothers. The creator Patrick McHale described it best, as culturally it is a mixture of American folklore, classic fairy tales, ghost stories, and dreamland. The first ever culmination of these ideas, when it came to the backgrounds, first began to click in the development of the show's pilot Tome of the Unknown, when background layout artist Chris Tiriotis created this sketch. Pat knew they had hit something special. The background design by Chris was only one side of the coin though, the other being the background painting that was done by Nick Cross. In fact, Nick's first pass at painting a fully rendered background during the development of the pilot garnered no notes and really set the tone for what was to come. As the show does take place in autumn, the color palettes tend to lean towards browns, reds, oranges, and yellows for the majority of the show, but when called for you can also see greens, blues, and grays. One of the main techniques that gives the background so much depth is by emulating a technique most commonly found in oil painting called grisaille, which involves painting an underlayer of a monochromatic palette, which is then covered with transparent layers of the desired color. The reason I said emulate is because Nick's workflow in the development of the series doesn't actually use a base layer of grey first. Instead, he would paint his heavily shadowed areas, then block out the rough colors, which would be followed by a shadow pass. After this, he would use a textured brush with lower opacity to emulate the depth created by grisaille, and finish it off by softly adding more depth by highlighting the areas that are hit by light, being sure to overlap into areas that are shadowed as well. We can also see how Cross integrated influence from chromolithography, a method used for mass-producing multicolored prints that mimicked hand-painted oil paintings. Commonly seen in chromolithographic prints is a general haziness to the final product, while parts of the picture, specifically the areas not in the center, can look less saturated and more muted. The pilot's background layout was actually done in pencil and then digitally painted, while the main series opted to draw the layouts digitally as it wasn't realistic time-wise. To put it simply, the technique of grisaille, while extremely effective as seen in the pilot, wasn't sustainable, which is why it needed to be emulated and done faster. If you're interested in trying Cross's workflow for yourself, I'll leave a link below. His workflow is well written and quite a treat to go through. I even gave it a try years ago. All of these inspirations, techniques, and designs help the unknown create that sense of longing, without the viewer being able to directly realize why, as it truly feels like a place lost in time, as it flows and changes from being comforting and welcoming to being disorienting and scary when it needs to be. The lack of familiarity somehow presents itself as familiar to the viewer. The myriad of time periods represented in the show, of course, also extend to the architecture of the buildings, the clothes the characters wear, and especially the music, although we will talk about that part later. Even the animation, which at times can be quite modern, still has a ton of varying influences that just aren't very common to see in today's animation landscape, especially one that is meant for all audiences. As you can guess, a lot of inspiration comes from old animation and techniques. The series' character designer, Phil Rinda, was said to have based his mouth charts off early 1900s cartoons from Disney and Fleischer Studios. One particular sequence that Nick Cross pushed for and animated in the series pays homage to rotoscope animation, which was actually invented by one of the Fleischer brothers, Max Fleischer. I'm sure first-time viewers when watching this scene wondered why the animation style changed just for a random short musical number, but I think it's as simple as artists wanting to make things that they want to make. At its core, it's a love letter to long-forgotten techniques and to animation itself, whether it's things seen throughout the show or even just for a short segment. Now, I talked a lot about the art itself, but I think it's only fair to talk more about the people who made this series possible and how they got from an idea to actually producing the show. It started as early as September 2006, when Pat McHale pitched 2 shows to Cartoon Network, one of them being the pilot for what would become Over the Garden Wall, called Tome of the Unknown. Unfortunately, Cartoon Network wanted McHale to make Tome of the Unknown as a feature film, but McHale couldn't find a way to make it work within his vision, so he decided not to move forward with it. In 2007, McHale worked on The Marvelous Misadventures of Flapjack as a storyboard artist before joining Pendleton Ward in the creation of a beloved Cartoon Network show, where for the first 2 seasons he served as creative director. The stars would seem to align as the artist McHale met while working on Adventure Time would then lend their creative prowess in both the creation of the pilot and the series. Penn Ward, the creator of Adventure Time, storyboarded and wrote for the 4th episode of the miniseries, Songs of the Dark Lantern, while Sue Mont, a background painter on Adventure Time, would become the art director for McHale's pilot. Phil Rinda, a character designer on the show, alongside Mikkel Summer, helped create the models for our main characters, while Rinda served as the creative director for the pilot. Sue Mont then recruited Chris Tyriotis and Nick Cross, who worked as the background layout and background painter artists. With the team assembled alongside many other artists, they put their heads down and finally, on September 9, 2013, Tome of the Unknown Harvest Melody was released. Almost immediately after, Cartoon Network ordered a miniseries to be made. The post-pilot idea for the series was similar to what we ended up getting, but with a few key differences. Originally, the boys accidentally board a train on its way to the afterlife, and as they jump off, find themselves in the unknown. They soon meet the woodsman who gives them a book called the Tome of the Unknown, and are told that they need to live through each chapter until they reach the end to be able to go home. Eventually, they find out that the woodsman was the one who trapped them all along with the help of an evil specter. This concept, along with a few of the darker episode ideas, were dropped due to the show being reworked to accommodate the budget and quality to 10 episodes, down from the desired 18 McHale wanted. One of these story concepts involved a man named Mr. Whittles, who would carve things out of children's bones and teeth. McHale had said that condensing the story was one of the hardest tasks he had faced. The story wasn't the only thing that was changing with the start of the production of the miniseries. The artists who made up the team would also change due to various reasons, while the only ones who remained from the pilot fully were McHale, Cross, and Tyriotis. Fun fact, the first episode that was produced was Hard Times of the Huskin Bee, the 2nd episode in the series. Not only did series art director Nick Cross do every background painting for the pilot, he also did every background painting for this episode, as well as designed and painted the opening sequence. Hard Times of the Huskin Bee served as a visual benchmark, which would cement the look for all future artists who would come on board to do background painting. Without all of these artists putting their all into the pilot, we wouldn't have gotten the show we know and love today. Of course, we wouldn't have gotten the show without the artists who worked on the main series, and there are a lot of them. I'm going to rapidly fire off a few of them. Please excuse me if I mispronounce any names. Narrative/writers, Amalia Lavari and Tom Herpage. Creative director, Nate Cash. Storyboard, Bert Yoon. Background design, Chris Tyriotis. Art director, Nick Cross. And of course, creator, Patrick McHale. Whether it was storyboarding, narrative work, writing, layout, or painting, they and many more artists worked tirelessly to make it all come together. Oftentimes, in animation productions, artists end up wearing many hats, and Over the Garden Wall is no exception. Many of the artists I listed above will often be credited doing multiple different roles depending on the episode. Everyone put their blood, sweat, and tears into making McHale's vision come to life. And on November 3rd, 2014, the first 2 episodes aired. 2 new episodes would air every single night until its conclusion on the 7th of November. Fun fact, the moon seen throughout the series was actually based on the moon phase that could be seen on Halloween night of 2014. As you can guess with Over the Garden Wall, The show is full of multifaceted characters and themes that take place over the course of the series. When it comes to themes, which there are many of, there is one that stands out to me as being particularly poignant, that being the theme of maturity. This theme starts presenting itself as early as 2 minutes into the first episode, when Wirt first says,
"Greg, you're gonna get us into trouble again."
At first, as a viewer, we see this as just a fact, that Greg is irresponsible and gets into trouble, but upon finishing the series, it tells us way more about the characters than we'd think. Both Wirt and Greg lack maturity in different ways due to their personalities and ages. Here it manifests as Wirt pinning the blame on Greg, when really the only reason they're in the unknown to begin with is because of Wirt's actions. Wirt, as we know, is an anxiety-ridden teenager who lacks accountability and tends to be the more cautious of the two. He has low self-esteem and tends to be more passive. Greg, on the other hand, is and acts like a kid. Overly positive, unaware of danger, others' feelings, and how his actions might affect other people. Greg views himself like the others commonly view him, a positive can't-do-no-wrong kid. Over the course of the series, we can see many examples of this in each episode, like at the end of The Old Gristmill when Wirt says,
"You're always messing up, Greg."
Or at the end of Mad Love when Greg throws the 2 pennies into the pond. We can see Greg just simply being unaware and dismissive of others' feelings in both The Old Gristmill and the episode Lullaby in Frogland, where he brushes aside what his brother is saying in favor of doing what he wants.
Drifting away from where I want to be, who I want to be.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Hey, what's with Beatrice?
I don't know. What's with George Washington being naked?
There are many more examples of these characteristics being prevalent, but the main point I want to make is that they are both stuck in their ways, whether it's not taking accountability or being oblivious to others' feelings. For the most part, we don't really see any real changes in their behavior until the aftermath of their escape from Adelaide in the beginning of The Ringing of the Bell, where Wirt is starting to take out his frustrations of Beatrice's betrayal on Greg.
I do have a plan. And if you don't trust me, then you don't have to follow me, okay? If you want to go look for Beatrice, go ahead. You can do anything you want.
But the pinnacle moment both characters take their first step into maturity is at the end of the next episode, Babes in the Wood. For Greg, throughout the series, he could not understand the ramifications of his actions. That is until he sees the Edelwood tree starting to grow from Wirt. Up until this point, he was completely unaware of how his brother was feeling, and upon seeing him and understanding his fate, he then makes a selfless choice. He chooses to take Wirt's place being claimed by the beast. He doesn't try and cheer Wirt up when he leaves with the beast, nor does he make any jokes. He lets go of his naivety and his persona of a kid who does no wrong, and sets aside his wants and needs after seeing Wirt's condition firsthand.
Trying to sleep.
Okay, you sleep. I'm sorry I got us lost, Wirt. Okay, I have to go now.
Upon escaping the beast's grasp, Wirt then immediately starts looking for Greg frantically before falling to the ice. It's here where the viewer gets to see how the two ended up in the unknown in the first place, but it's also what Wirt is dreaming about while he's unconscious. We and Wirt get to see firsthand the way he would treat Greg in their normal lives. Things like promising him to do things with him and having no intention of following through.
So you want to go look for frogs with me like you said you would a while ago and haven't done it yet?
Nah, I'm busy.
Or straight up telling Greg that he ruined his life.
Oh, once again you ruined my life.
Who, me?
Oh, you and your stupid dad.
Greg, while having good intentions, isn't thinking before acting or considering Wirt's more nuanced feelings throughout the episode.
I want to, but I can't.
Can I see it? I'll give it to her for you.
Oh, Greg, wait, no!
The viewer gets to see the two's inadequacies on full display. At the end of the 9th episode, Into the Unknown, is where we see things click in Wirt's mind. He realizes how awful he has been to his brother, and immediately heads out into a snowstorm to track him down.
You'll be no good to your brother dead.
I was never any good to him alive either. Thank you so much.
Upon meeting Beatrice at the beginning of the last episode, The Unknown, another interesting thing happens. Wirt puts aside his feelings towards Beatrice despite still being upset with her for the sake of his brother.
Not until Greg is safe.
Okay.
We should hurry.
Thank you, Beatrice.
He is acutely aware that there is no point in pointing fingers, because right now what he needs is to stay calm, take action, and find his brother before it's too late. Right after this, we have the culmination and final piece of both Wirt and Greg's growth. Greg admits to stealing the Rockfax rock from Mrs. Daniels' garden.
I stole it, Wirt, from Mrs. Daniels' garden. I'm a stealer.
And Wirt admits that everything that has happened to them has been his fault.
It's my fault we ended up here. Everything's been my fault.
Both characters went through different circumstances to allow for them to mature into better versions of themselves. and I believe it's due to them overcoming their faults that they were then able to leave the unknown. In tandem with the theme of maturity, we also have the theme of the importance of relationships. Now I'll only touch on this lightly, but this is another theme that I think pops up a lot throughout the story. Think of the two brothers learning to understand one another and growing closer by the end of the story, or Beatrice and Wirt who learn to slowly trust each other and care for one another. The main trio is able to mature and change not just from understanding themselves, but by also building meaningful relationships. With that in mind, I think it's a beautiful sentiment when thinking of the unknown as a place similar to purgatory. They were able to leave the unknown and avoid being lost forever because of the love and support they gave each other. Now, there are many theories surrounding how people leave the unknown, but this is just the one that I like best. We know for certain that the unknown is a place between life and death, where lost souls wander, but when it comes to how souls move in and out of the unknown, it's more enigmatic. For me personally, I see it as the only way souls can return to the land of the living is by meeting two requirements. The first being the soul has to understand what one of their greatest faults is while moving past it, and the second being able to do that before their bodies fully pass. Obviously, this has to be done before being claimed by the beast. For those who do the first, but are unable to do it before fully dying, they move out of the unknown and into the land of the dead, where their souls live. The reason I like this theory is because it's clear that in the case of the woodsman, he was able to leave the unknown after mustering the courage to let go of his daughter. As we know, the woodsman has been wandering the unknown for years.
You've been grinding up lost souls for years!
And it's clear based on his daughter's reaction and the difference in seasons that he had been missing for some time. Based on this, we can surmise that after leaving the unknown, he reunited with his daughter in the afterlife, while Wirt and Greg, despite being gone multiple days and nights, were really only unconscious for a range of 5 to 10 minutes. This of course is just speculation, as many people will have differing opinions and theories surrounding the things I discussed. There are, however, a few denizens of the unknown that I'd like to expand upon. The first I'd like to talk about is the citizens of Pottsfield. As some of you already know, Pottsfield's name comes from the term Potter's Field. It was the name of a place used to bury unknown, unclaimed, or impoverished people who were not able to afford grave markers. On occasion, these fields were used for mass burials of thousands of people. It's a neat sense of symbolism that the people in Pottsfield have no skin and almost no identity or way to discern between one another besides their name. Everyone there is content staying in the town with each other because they don't have any family except for those they were buried beside. This isn't the case though for the people who reside in the tavern from episode 4. It was confirmed in the art book that the tavern goers are actually souls that were already claimed by the beast. The DL on the sign outside stands for Dark Lantern, and the people inside can't physically leave the tavern because their souls are stuck inside the lantern. The Edelwood tree seen at the end of the episode is actually made up of the residents of the tavern, which is why it has so many faces. Now, when it comes to theories about Over the Garden Wall, there's always one that many have questions about, that being of the Black Turtles. In an interview with the Dot and Line, when asked about the Black Turtles, Mikhail responded with, "It's an imperfection in the quilt." There have been many interviewers who have asked similar questions, and most of Mikhail's responses end up with him not expanding on it. I'm not sure if there was ever a bigger plan narratively involving the Turtles, but it's clear that Mikhail chose to let this mystery stay shrouded. In my opinion, I believe that the Turtles are just another embodiment of the beast that is seeped from the forest and manifested into living creatures that inhabit the unknown. They are creatures that carry a blight that corrupts everything. Everything, of course, except for Auntie Whispers. Now, why doesn't she get corrupted when she consumes them? Well, we don't quite know. Perhaps she has magical properties just like her sister Adelaide. I like to think that she is able to purge the blight, and her appearance is an indication that although she is being affected by it, she still retains her sanity. There are so many unanswered questions and theories surrounding the characters that as you watch, you almost forget a big reason as to why you're so invested. That reason being the people who brought these characters to life. When choosing who Mikhail wanted to voice the characters, he had originally brought up wanting someone who sounded like Elijah Wood as Wirt, not thinking that there was even a possibility of getting him. Soon after receiving and viewing the pitch Bible, Wood joined the project fully to voice the titular character Wirt.
The bassoon and clarinet are way different. I don't have the embouchure for bassoon. I mean, the lower and middle ranges have some similarities.
Mikhail has stated that he thinks getting Elijah Wood on board helped with getting other actors he wanted onto the project, and boy did he get them. Colin Dean joined as the voice of Greg,
Did you know that if you soak a raisin in grape juice, it turns into a grape? It's a rock fact!
And Melanie Linsky as the voice of Beatrice.
I was thinking more like flat out stealing from him.
What?
Christopher Lloyd came aboard as the voice of the woodsman.
These woods are no place for children. Don't you know the beast is afoot here?
And Samuel Ramey as the Beast to round out the main cast.
Why not let me take the lantern for a while?
McHale brought many more aboard in even more minor roles. John Cleese lent his acting prowess as Quincy Endicott and Adelaide.
I'm on the brink of madness. I'm all alone in the world. I want a child servant.
Tim Curry brought Auntie Whispers to life.
Then no one shall be devoured alive tonight.
While Fred Stoller played Fred the Horse.
While I'm at it, I'll steal other stuff too.
The four I find most interesting though are Chris Isaak, Jack Jones, Janet Klein, and Samuel Ramey, because they are primarily singers, or in the case of Samuel Ramey, an operatic bass. As far as I was able to find, McHale wanted these artists to be part of the project, and even went so far as to create characters specifically for them in the case of Janet Klein. Chris Isaak, the voice of Enoch, and also this guy, and I think this guy, sings the song Patient is the Night.
Patient is the night.
Jack Jones, the voice of Jason Funderburker, Greg's Frog, sings both the title song Into the Unknown
How the gentle wind
and also Over the Garden Wall.
over the garden wall.
Janet Klein, who voices Miss Langtree, has her own song, Langtree's Lament.
A is for the apple that he gave to me, but I found a worm inside.
And Samuel Ramey got to perform 2 operatic numbers throughout the series, The Jolly Woodsman
Who's out there?
and Come Wayward Souls.
To the soil of the earth.
McHale had even said in the DVD commentary how it's not very common to get everything you want when making a series, but in this case he practically did. He got little to no pushback for the story and art, and he was able to get basically everyone he wanted as voice actors. For Elijah Wood specifically, he still holds Over the Garden Wall in high regards to this day. Here's a clip in case you're wondering.
Over the Garden Wall? This sort of beautiful 2D animation style that feels very much like it evokes something from the past. It's really stunning.
Each actor brought their best to bring their respected characters to life. I know I said something similar in multiple parts about everyone doing their best, but it's true. McHale had said that he believed everyone was constantly doing their best because they could see each other's work and wanted to match that quality. Every person, actor, artist, and musician worked tirelessly to make this show a reality. Speaking of musicians though, the visuals in Over the Garden Wall are marvelous, but this also extends to the show's original soundtrack created by the Blasting Company. The musical group, which consists of 5 members, was founded by the half-brothers, Josh Kaufman and Justin Rubinstein. Just like the art and animation, the music takes inspiration from various influences through the eras. The art book quotes it as Dixieland, opera, jazz ballads, Eastern European folk music, and turn-of-the-century blues. Each episode tends to lean into the rough time era it takes place in, such as the episode Schooltown Follies and its use of early jazz. Now my music theory is pretty rusty, so for this section I instead want to talk about leitmotifs. For those who don't know, leitmotifs are usually small musical moments that appear multiple times throughout a show or movie that represent a character's identity. It can even help with storytelling when used correctly, and it's really neat once you start hearing these melodies because they are in everything. Most likely your favorite animated movie uses this tactic without you even knowing it. How to Train Your Dragon and Shrek 2 do a fantastic job of this. If you want to learn more about that, you should check out these videos by Sideways. In terms of the characters in the show, I'll go through them one at a time. A lot of the leitmotifs for our main characters can be heard as early as the first episode. For Wirt, we get a little woodwind ensemble made up of clarinets.
My wounded heart resides back home, in pieces, strewn about the graveyard of my lost love.
I don't think I need to explain why Wirt might have clarinets in his motif.
Poetry and clarinet!
Beatrice is represented by the melody of the lullaby, One is a Bird, that is actually sung by Beatrice's mother when the boys leave the unknown.
One is a bird, two are the trees.
Now you go.
Whoa, your whole family?
Yeah.
Is that why you're going to Adelaide?
This motif pops up a lot, and I love how we only truly understand why she's represented by it later in the story, as it really shows her familial bond. Greg is a little bit different since his theme is a lot more obvious. He's represented by the song Potatoes and Molasses.
Oh, potatoes and molasses.
The somber Latin version plays when Greg is on the brink of succumbing to the beast.
Whoa. What happened here?
The woodsman is represented by a bass clarinet playing some super low notes, and what I think is a theremin. You know, this thing.
And I'll see you guys later. Bye.
Calm down, mister. Well, whatever you do here is... But look, we got the beast problem solved.
After the brothers meet the woodsman, we get his leitmotif expanded on with this music box edition.
Everyone has a torch to burn, and this here is mine.
Both of these parts of his leitmotif give a lot of insight into his character. There's an obvious eeriness that comes with the heavy low notes of the bass clarinet and the rather alien sounds of the theremin. The music box can be seen as an extension of his relationship with his daughter, whose soul he believes is in the lantern. Remember when I said that leitmotifs can help with storytelling? Well, the next character I want to talk about is the Beast, as he has a few musical cues that make up his theme. His sound centers around similar darker sounds, except instead of a bass clarinet, we have strings and a choir.
Woodsman, why not let me take the lantern for a while?
Upon his first introduction, we hear these strings, but it's soon followed up by the music box when the woodsman holds up the lantern.
But be sure to keep it lit, or your daughter's flame will go out. Forever.
As a viewer, we hear this and associate it with the woodsman's daughter, based on what the Beast says. But as we look back on the series as a whole, we know that the Beast's soul is in the lantern the whole time. It's a clever little way where the music is giving us hints to what's to come. The same thing applies with this choir segment.
There is only me. There is only my way. There is only the forest.
The first time we hear this is at the very beginning of the show, when the boys first realize they are in the unknown, as the Beast is synonymous with the forest that they find themselves lost in.
Where are we?
This isn't relative to my point, but I just wanted to add how much I adore the soundtrack Adelaide's Trap.
With wool, they'll become just like little sheep and follow my every command. What are you doing? The night air is poisonous!
The easing in of the strings until the ensemble comes in, as if the thoughts in Mort's mind about the situation at hand are piling up, as he realizes that all their progress was for nothing. Also, I love the callback to the soundtrack after Auntie Whisper says,
Beware of my sister Adelaide. She lives in the pasture. She must not be trusted.
From the instruments chosen to the vocalists and different genres, I find there's an overabundance of things to cherish and love when it comes to the sounds that make up the series. I want to talk briefly about why there aren't more shows like Over the Garden Wall, and why there were never any more seasons before getting into the more personal section. The reason why there aren't more seasons and why other shows don't produce work of the same quality is, 1. The show was always meant to be a miniseries, but as I said before, initially it was supposed to be 18 11-minute episodes, but that was changed to better manage the budget, quality, and time frame. 2. Animation is expensive, especially the way the team decided to approach their background layouts and paintings. Cross had said, "We knew we were only going to do a 100-meter dash so we could run as fast as possible." They always knew that this approach would most likely not be possible in a long multi-season format because of how time-consuming and difficult it was. 3. Creative freedom is exceptionally hard to come by when it comes to animation. Artists usually don't get to choose what they make when it comes to productions, and even when it's your own IP, there can be a lot of pushback. Luckily, Cartoon Network said they could basically do anything they wanted. 4. The team was incredibly skilled and loved and believed in what they were doing to the utmost. Over the Garden Wall, at least from an artistic standpoint, was only able to become what it was because of all these factors. It's every artist's dream to be able to work on something they are proud of and give it their all. It's just most of the time not possible to find studios or projects that are special to the artist. Now I'm going to get a little sentimental because this fall doesn't just mark the 10th anniversary of Over the Garden Wall, it also marks my 10th anniversary for starting my journey into the industry. 10 years ago, I started my schooling at a private institute learning skills for both games and animation, and it was incredibly daunting as I wasn't sure if it's what I wanted to do with my life. Luckily for me, I stumbled upon Over the Garden Wall soon after it aired, and it completely changed my perspective. Viewing it was so incredibly formative for me because just like Wirt and Greg, I was venturing out into my own version of the unknown. Everything about the show, the story, its characters, and the art filled me with so much drive and passion that it helped me move forward and stick with the path I had chosen. I can't even find the words truly to describe how fortunate I was to have watched the series when I did and how much I cherish it. But for me personally, after watching the show, I knew something for certain. I wouldn't be satisfied doing anything else in my life other than pursuing art. And that's a rock fact. There's so much neat trivia I had that I just couldn't find a natural way to weave into this video. Maybe I'll make another video about those in the future. But for now, thank you for watching. I hope you now know why this show is so important to me.
Led through the mist by the milk light of moon, all that was lost is revealed. Our long bygone burdens, mere echoes of the spring. But where have we come, and where shall we end? If dreams can't come true, then why not pretend? How the gentle wind beckons through the leaves as autumn colors fall, dancing in a swirl of golden memories, the loveliest lives of all.